Okay, let's see. Tonight we're going to do the timeline. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the timeline or not. It was something I didn't know about for a long time. In order to find it, you go to the person page, where you pick an ancestor, and then along their menu options, the second one from the left is the timeline tab, and any event in their life that has a date attached to it will appear on the timeline. There is a map that you can toggle off and on. If you go to another button on the timeline menu, there is a show button, and if you hit that, it will give you a drop-down menu, and then you can choose which of the events or relationships you want to show on your timeline. So it helps you customize it to what you want to look at. You select the events or relationships that you want to show. And for each event that is selected, a red pin, like this, will be created for each event on the map. When you toggle the map on, you will get a world map that looks like this. Each event over on the left on the timeline is represented by a pin over on the map. You'll notice this is a single event down here. This one pin has the number 9. That indicates that there are 9 events that took place in that tiny area.
For this one person?
This is just one person's life events.
Okay.
If you click the show route, all of the events that are on the timeline on the left will be mapped on the right. And it will actually move, and you can watch them travel through their life.
Oh, that was quite a move back then.
I know. And if you click hide route, it will remove the route and take you just back to the main map. So one thing that timelines are really amazing for is they kind of help us look outside the box. Sometimes we're looking at all of these events in a person's life, and we're checking years and dates and making sure it's all in chronological order, but we miss things. So this particular ancestor is one of mine. It's a woman, and you'll notice that most of her life she was in the UK, except she died in Chile.
Wow, that's quite a move.
It's quite a move. And when you get looking at the sources behind it, she left a 2-year-old, all of her children, and her husband in England, and died in Chile.
Wow.
Kind of raises a few red flags and questions, don't you think?
A little bit, just a few.
Just a few.
Just a few, yeah.
But it was the timeline that raised the questions for me.
Wow.
Okay, the other thing you can do with the map is you can turn it from the map you saw in the previous slide to a satellite map.
Okay.
Satellite maps help us see geography a little better.
Yeah, yeah.
Remember, most people travel down rivers, around mountains, not over them. So if you have an ancestor moving from point A to point B, it helps you see why and how the route they might have taken. You'll notice in this one I have expanded out the pins. This is the satellite map.
Okay.
I've expanded out those 10 pins that were on the, or 9 pins.
Right.
And you'll see that the majority of them took place in one area. And then you've got this lone one sticking out here. You'll notice the different types of symbols on them. Babies indicate births of children.
Okay, all right.
Wedding rings are marriages.
Okay, all right.
Houses are residences.
Like they moved or something?
That, for example, if you have a residence of a census, that is how it will show.
Okay.
So there's a variety of pins depending on the event. If you think back to the previous map, the pin in Chile was a wilted flower. That's death.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you can
How
kind of,
long, how long after she left England did she die in Chile?
supposedly, she died 2 years after her last child was born, according to what the evidence showed that's attached to her.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so as we look at timelines, there's several questions that we kind of want to keep in our mind. First of all, what facts are you missing? We're trying to recreate the life of your ancestor. So if you just have a birth date and a death date, or a birthplace and a death place, there's a lot that happens in the 40 to 50 years that they lived. What details are missing from specific facts? If you have a date but no location, or you have a location but no date, what is missing? Are there any facts missing? Are any facts missing sources? Or are the sources that they do have weak? And is it possible that you could find or add new records? Are there inconsistencies? For example, the move from England to Chile and dying there seems a little inconsistent with the pattern. Is there more information on the sources that you have than you recorded on your tree? We talked about census records a few weeks ago and all of the things that a census contains. Do you squeeze out from every source every bit of information? Or do you just say, well, it's a name and the family names, and so I just validated a name and moved on?
Okay, Shauna, can we do this for any of us as that are living? Can we do it for ourselves?
Any person with a PID number, any that has a record in Family Search, living or dead, will have a timeline.
Okay.
Are there big gaps in your ancestor's life? And what records might you find to fill them? Were there big external events that influenced his or her life that may have produced records?
COVID-19.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they live through a pandemic? Did they live through a world war? If they were in a world war, were they in the military? So you might check military records. If they lived through a famine or something that caused people to move from point A to point B in search of a better life, there might be immigration records.
Okay.
How do the timelines of his or her relatives fit in? Were they born and all living in the same area, or was one child born in, say, England and another one born in, or all the children born in one country, say England, and one oddball born in the middle somewhere else? And does the odd child's birth, do they really belong to that family, or did they just share a similar name with a parent?
Okay.
Did your ancestor always live in the same location? If not, where did they move? And can you create a date-based map of their travels to find new records? And finally, what can you learn about the locations in each event? Sometimes learning about where they lived and kind of what was going on in that area helps us better understand why they stayed or why they left. You often hear that people have brick walls that they just can't get by. These are stopping points that they just can't overcome. Effective use of timelines can really help them come tumbling down. So we're going to go to Family Search. I'm assuming you can see Family Search now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, this is Jane Kapner.
Wait, no, we're not on family. We're on your PowerPoint still.
Oh, you're on my PowerPoint still. Okay, let me get to the right. Welcome, Catherine Hutchings. Okay, let's see. Where is there? All right, now you should see
There we
the
go.
Family Search screen.
We got
This
it.
is
Yeah.
Jane Kapner. She's a relative of mine. We're going to kind of look over her basics. According to her person page, there's her name, her birth. She was born in England in 1812. Her death, she died in 1844 in Chile. We have some warnings over here of duplicates, but we're not going to deal with those today because she's my test victim. So as we look down, we see that her parents were married in England, as was she. She had 4 children, 3 boys and a girl, and she was this third child, and had quite a few siblings. You'll notice that her youngest child was born in 1842. So that kind of just tells us a little bit about her, so we're a little more familiar as we go to look. We come over here under her name to her timeline. We click on that. Remember, all of the events that are listed here are events that have a date on her person page. So we have her birth, and you'll see the little icons here. They will match to the icons that you would see on the little pins that we talked about in the PowerPoint.
Right.
The exception to that is historical events do not have pins because they generally deal with a large, not an individual spot.
Okay.
On this timeline, you'll notice here that we have a red exclamation point. Can anyone tell me what that is about?
There's something wrong.
There's something wrong. It's not standardized.
Right.
Like I say, she's my test victim, so I leave her alone so that I have examples. But yes, that needs to be standardized. And it's actually one of her siblings. So in order to fix that, I would go to her sibling, who's Rebecca, and just standardize that place.
Okay.
And that would go away. So that's one thing that timelines are really good for, to pick up on. Then you'll notice as we scroll down, everything looks to be in chronological order. That's good. We've got her death here in Chile. And then we've got this residence in 1861.
She came back.
She came back. Seems a little odd, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. So from that, I go up to sources and I say, okay, here's the years of the sources. Here's the 1861 census. She's in the right household. So, you know, I kind of look, you'll notice over here, it says who attached the source and what date. I can also go down, I think her death was in here somewhere. I'm not finding her death right offhand. But anyway, so you can go back and check the source and see if indeed it's a correct or it was just attached by mistake.
So was she listed on a census?
She is, I have looked at it, and yes, she was listed to a James Cockburn on the census with no children in 1861. And her birth date, her birth year would have been off by 2 years, which isn't too bad for a census. And they had a live-in nephew that was living with them, according to the census. So I have not done any research on it other than that, because I just use her as an example. Okay, we're going to come up here to the map. We're going to toggle it on. And I don't want that. Whoops. Not sure what happened there. All right, here's our satellite map. We're gonna, if I click these little squares here, it will get rid of all that other stuff, so my map's a little bigger. And if I click the show route, which is at the bottom, you're going to see her travel really fast. Going around and up and down. That was fast, quick life.
Especially after she died.
Especially after she died. You'll
Yeah.
notice that if I click on this pin, it will light up on the left side what event it refers to.
Hmm.
Okay.
No source. Okay.
Now, if I go up, let's get rid of our route. We can do our satellite view. So you can see the mountain ranges, you can see the deserts. If we zoom in, so we've got England here. You'll see this one little residence that was the 1861 that we're not sure she belongs there. It's a long way from here where 3/4 of her life events took place. And if I click on this little number 9, those expand out. And I can actually zoom in a little bit and see that 6 of them occurred like right in the same spot.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that back in the 1800s, they really didn't generally move very far. And you can see that the majority of her life was here with a couple of little outliers, a little bit traveled for a wedding and a couple others.
But it's not totally impossible for her to have told somebody she died in Chile, then she moved back to a different part of England and lived out another 20 years, right?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say she never went to Chile.
Right,
In the first place?
right.
In the first place. I have checked her husband's timeline, and he did not travel past this little area.
And they didn't back then. That was way too
That would have been
far.
a long
That's way
trip.
too far. And when you think of a single or of a married woman
Yeah.
leaving a 2-year-old child,
That didn't happen.
it
couldn't
just
afford
didn't happen.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I'm not sure where that came from,
Yeah.
but I don't think it pertains to her. Like I say, I've left it attached because I was looking for an example and I stumbled on it and I thought, oh, this is a great example.
Good.
Okay, the other button I wanted to show you is the show button. If I click on that, you get this event thing here. You'll notice I've got all of these different relationships. If I get rid of anything that pertains to her siblings or her parents, then I'm just dealing with her. Get rid of the historical events. It takes all of them off the left side as well. You notice that weird death thing remains. But now when I zoom in, instead of having 9, I've only got 5 events here. And they're all births of her 4 children and her wedding, her marriage.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an event that you discover you want to add, there is an add button here. And you can add it, and you can just do it right from here. So let's say you discovered that she immigrated in 1843. You could just add it right there. You don't have to go somewhere else and do it. and it will create it right there.
Yep, nice.
Okay. Any
Okay.
questions while we're in family search about the timeline?
I have a question.
Okay.
So you just said you can add it right there, but if you just add it to the detail page or the sources, is it going to just show up there in the
It will.
time? Okay, so either way.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thanks.
So for example, if I go to her details and I add information, let's see. Let's give her another residence. She's really got a strange life.
Yeah. Mhm.
All right, so we're gonna go back to her timeline. And let's see. I may have to refresh it though. I'm not sure why we didn't.
You're not the US yet, are you? I don't think you're far enough over, are you? On the map?
Oh, maybe. No, it should be right there.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're right. Huh. Hmm.
Our data already exists.
Hmm.
I'm wondering if it's not, let's see. I'm wondering if it's because my date is so far off, if it's not.
The computer doesn't believe you.
Right.
Well, that's okay. I don't believe myself sometimes. All right. This is good. This is good practice. Oh, there she goes. Okay.
That did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So my guess is that one residence that was that's off after she died
Yeah. Right.
was probably a source that somebody just like a hint that somebody didn't check out and randomly just attached,
Okay.
and the computer didn't pick it up.
So, Roshana, why wouldn't we have her real death then?
Because no one's ever researched it, and this one is not sourced.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that somebody either typed a date wrong or put the wrong person in and through a merge or something. But see, now if I do this show route, she's really going to travel.
Can I use that here?
Does that answer your question, Catherine? Okay, do we have any other questions? Do we have any other questions?
You're great. It's amazing.
All right, so we're going to stop this. We're going to go back to our PowerPoint. And this is your challenge. I want you to choose an ancestor and view their timeline. Determine which events in their life you would like to show on the timeline. So go to the show menu and choose the ones you want. And then study the route and look for gaps or questionable events or locations. And then explore the pins for the different events in their life.
Cool.
And as always, if you have questions or problems, here are your contact people.
Can I ask you a few questions from last week?
Sure.
So in Ancestry, if you search and find someone, how do you add them to your tree?
Okay.
You know?
I am not that familiar with Ancestry. Do you guys know? The rest of you?
I'm not with, no.
Well, we've done it, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you go about adding the person other than to copy the information that you needed, like their birth and death date, and then go into Family Search and add them.
Yeah, we
And it
tried doing that. We put them in Family Search and then synced it, and we thought it would show up over in Ancestry, but it never did.
No,
That's
it syncs from Family Search to Ancestry, but not the other way around.
Right, I'm saying we found them in Family Search, and
Oh,
then we tried to sync it with Ancestry, and it didn't show up over in Ancestry, and that's what
And it-
had me baffled.
okay. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that one.
And we might
So
have
you're-
done something wrong.
You're trying to get your own private tree in Ancestry then. That's the
Right.
direction you're going.
Yeah,
Yeah, it should have gone from Family Search over to there. So I'm not sure why it didn't work, because the sync should work in that direction, just not the other.
yeah, it was Jody's aunt, and she's deceased, and she wasn't showing up in Family Search either. So we went in and added her birth date. Oh, no, it's Janice. Sorry, it's her other aunt that's not deceased. But we added her birth date and that she was living and where she was born and who her parents
Oh,
were.
Okay,
And
so
because she's
so
living.
living people won't sync. Because
Oh.
remember, there's two spaces. There's the private space of living and the public space of deceased people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
we
that's why
wondered
she
that.
didn't sync.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so you would have to add her into Ancestry individually.
Manually.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Do you have any other questions, Jody?
No, that was it.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. Any other questions before we close?
No, but Shauna, thank you so very much for all this. You've done so great. Really.
Okay,
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.